Hello and good evening, runners. I'm Coach Roberto Mange, and I'm with my colleague and co-coach today, Steve Mura, and we're going to be going over the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon course strategy, telling you all the good tips, years of insider information, prepare you for the 50th running of the TCS New York City Marathon. We're really excited to have you here, so let us know where you're watching from, shout out, send us your questions, and we'll be getting to those later on in the program. But first, we want to welcome you all into this year's marathon. This is day one of the expo. We're just out there, myself and Steve, already interacting with runners and answering questions, pacer questions. A lot of questions we've answered today we're going to be covering here, but also, like I said, we want to hear from you. So, Steve, welcome. How are you doing?
Good. I think I feel energized from being at the expo. Like, it was cool to be around the runners and back this year, seeing a lot of the vendors out there, checking the really cool New Balance stuff as well, seeing runners yourself get your bib. So it was a really cool experience just to be at the expo. So if you have, once again, the expo, if you're not there today, Friday and Saturday, go at your assigned time. It's fun, it's exciting. But like Roberto said, mile by mile breakdown today. So any race questions you have, put them in the chat. And we're going to start at the start, Roberto.
That's usually where we start. So as we've been doing today, and we might switch it up between Thursday and usually by Saturday we're freestyling a little bit more. But there's three things that we always like to cover before any race, whether it's our TCS New York City Marathon or any of our marquee events, usually at the half marathon distance when we're doing course strategies. So the first one is avoid the race before the race. I'll go through all three and then we'll break it down. So avoid the race before the race, nothing new on race day, and don't go out too fast. That's usually the order. Sometimes we switch it up, but essentially avoid the race before the race. What does that mean, Steve?
Guys, there's 35,000 people doing this race, and that's 35,000 people trying to get to the same place on Staten Island on Sunday morning. So it is crowded. So give yourself extra time to get to the start line. I'd rather you be there 30 minutes early, hanging out in your corrals, chilling with your sleep bag, sweatpants on, than racing to the corrals, because you only get a medal for 26.2 miles run that day. So any mileage you do beforehand, it's just going to tire you out. So enjoy the time beforehand, get there early, give yourself extra time to get to the bus, give yourself extra time to find a taxi, extra time to get to the subway, all that fun stuff. Do not race before you get to the race, Coach Roberto.
Exactly, excellent. And then the other one is
nothing new on race day?
Exactly, nothing new on races. So I'll go ahead and say this because I know Steve is going to say if you haven't eaten it, blah, 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 but essentially nothing new on race day. And we just came from the expo and we saw a lot of excited runners buying gear, shoes, socks, goose, gels, you name it. So feel free to do that. If you've trained in it and you've consumed it in training for your hydration, nutrition, and your long runs, by no means replenish that and have your stuff and your gear ready for a race day. If you haven't, don't try it now. Now is not the time to try it before the race day or literally on race day. So stick to what's worked for you. Earlier today, we were doing course strategy. We had a few people asking questions about what should I eat the week before, what should I eat the night before. Essentially, what you've eaten before your long runs on the night before, what you had for breakfast that morning, stick to that. It should be super, super boring. The excitement part should be the race, and there shouldn't be anything left up to chance or surprise. So nothing new on race day means gear, means nutrition, means hydration.
That's right. And guys, the last one is don't go out too fast. So you're going to look in a little bit. We have three really big climbs in this course. So the first one being the Verrazano Bridge, mile 1. You're not going to notice it because it's mile 1. You're excited, you're enjoying it, but that's actually the biggest climb elevation-wise of the whole course. The last two hills are actually in the latter part of the race, past mile 13, that being the Queensboro Bridge around mile 16, and then the hill at 5th Avenue around mile 22, 23, which really gets you at the very end there. And those are the three biggest climbs, but the hardest ones are in the latter part. So don't go out too fast, because if you go out 5K speed early on, you're going to have a hard time in the latter parts of the race. I always say people pass you early on for two reasons. A, they're faster than you, so let them go, or they're going out too fast, and you're going to catch them later at mile 21, 22. So just slow down early on, enjoy the race, avoid weaving around people. Once again, you don't want more mileage to your watch, so enjoy the Verrazano Bridge, soak in the moment, but you'll have time to open up a little bit later in the course, Roberto.
Yeah, certainly, and I know I personally prefer to be passing people later on than be the one passing. It's better for morale, and as we also always say, you can't win the race in that first mile, but you can certainly lose it. So follow Steve's advice, and let's get started. Before we mention that, there are some new, obviously, safety protocols that we're doing this year, limiting contact points, max vaccines. So Steve, take us through some of that.
Yeah, guys, as you can see here, we're definitely doing a lot of changes to make everyone's health and safety out there top priority. So like Roberto said, we're reducing density. So like we said before, it used to be 50,000 people. We're limiting that now to 35,000. But with that, keep in mind, same amount of bathrooms out there, Roberto, the Start Village. So hopefully no lines out there. Same amount of water stations throughout the cups. So keep that in mind. We're keeping some stuff same, but lowering capacity out there. Same with the expo. We're letting a certain amount of people in at the expo. Throughout the 3 days, you have assigned times to get to the expo. Vaccine information to get in the expo, you do need to be vaccinated. And if you're not, you also can be outside the expo to pick up a picture
on Saturday.
Yeah, on Saturday as well. And we're limiting touch points as well, guys. So really making sure we're just being safe out there throughout the whole race week. And then this kind of shows you once again where those face coverings are required. Basically, face coverings, if you're not on the actual race course, you are wearing your face covering. From the run center to the expo, everyone at the expo had the masks on. Start area and finish line area, we're going to go in a little bit, but you will need your mask at that part of the course as well. But as I said there, on course, you do not need to wear your masks. I do recommend carrying your mask with you throughout the race, because if it does get crowded at some parts of the course, you can put that on. But we will give you a brand new one at the finish, Roberto.
Yeah, and also on top of that, we obviously care about New York City. We care about environment. So the race will start on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which Steve will show us momentarily. So if you take off your mask when you start, which obviously you're free to do so, just make sure that you hold on to it. If you do want to discard it once we get into Brooklyn around mile 3 on 4th Avenue, because at least it's easier to pick up. But on the Verrazano Bridge, it's windy. If you throw it on the ground, even if you literally throw it on the ground, there's a good chance that the wind might pick it up, and then we're just going to be polluting the river. So just hold on to that mask and discard it later on if you're not going to run with it the whole way.
Yeah, guys. So show up at Wadsworth. Take your bus, your ferry, your car there, guys. And this is the only race, Coach Roberto, or sporting event that starts the cannon. And it is exciting. It starts.
That I know of.
It's the cannon goes off. Frank Sinatra is singing to you, New York, New York, and you're in the moment, you're feeling it, guys. And I love mile 1 of this course, Roberto, because as you said, you go over that Verrazano Bridge, you're going to see the city, sort of left-hand side. You're going to have some water cannons from boats on the right-hand side. It is a spectacular view. And like I said before, it's the biggest climb, actually. This bridge right here that we're going over right now is the biggest climb you're going to do in the entire course, but you're really not going to feel it, Roberto.
No, fortunately, you don't feel it. There's a bunch of adrenaline. There's a lot of people around, which you'll see in the next infograph. That's how the start lines typically look. It'll look a little bit less dense than that. But the thing is, no matter what race you're running, obviously this being a marathon, you're always going to be nervous, excited, adrenaline, and people just go off. So make sure that you don't go out too hard. So I use this example quite often. Steve could talk about it later, but we'll have pacers. I pace some years, and whatever your goal pace is, I'll use 4 hours as a kind of in-between time. That's a 9:09 per mile pace. So you think, okay, I have to run 9:09 every mile like a metronome. And then the truth is, no, you don't have to, because if you try to run 9:09 for that first mile, you're going to be bobbing and weaving through people. And on top of that, you're actually going to be exerting more energy and more effort. So it's actually going to be like a faster pace just because of the impressive climb on the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which you can kind of see down there. So what you want to do is just focus on effort versus pace. And our pacers that Steve will talk about shortly will do the same thing. And the thing is, like, literally running the exact same effort up the Verrazano Narrows Bridge for the first mile and running that same effort on the second mile will yield maybe about a minute difference in pace. Every year I start off running about 7:16, 7:20 for that first mile, and I don't change gears. I just keep the same effort, and I run like around 6:0, 6:10, so like a minute faster. So take those first 2 miles nice and easy.
Yeah, as Coach Roberto said, we will have our pace team leaders out there. They'll be carrying these great blue and white signs with singlets that match it, guys. So we have pacer here running 4:15. That's averaging 9:43. So look out for them. They're actually at the expo now. They'll be at the expo throughout the next 2 days as well. You can find out where they're located, what corral they're in. You can also find that on our website, so you can do that as well. But these are the best runners in New York City. They have ran the course multiple times after every race. I look at all of their splits to make sure they're hitting those splits. And if they don't hit the splits, you know what? They're not asked back.
Whoa.
So they're one of the best pacers out there. Trust them. I use pacer to actually slow down on the course. I tend to go out too fast. I get excited, so that this 4:15 pacer is going to prevent me from going out too fast. I'm going to stay with them maybe until mile 20, 21, until I feel good, and I can maybe get a 4:14, 4:13 finish, depending on how I'm feeling that day. So use them, guys. They're out there, best runners in the city that you can use out there. After Verrazano Bridge, you make your way into Brooklyn, Coach Roberto, and the course does a little, separation here. Green kind of continues on the bottom part here, and everything else goes 4th Avenue. Everyone is running 26.2 miles, no matter which color you're on, no matter where you're starting. All courses do come together at mile 8, which we'll get to, but keep that in mind. That you are kind of starting, if you have friends cheering for you early on especially, make sure they're on the correct side of the road. Water and Gatorade along this course are at every mile between mile 3 and mile 25, except mile 5, 7, and 9. So this year we have removed those water stations. So if you're at mile 4 and you're feeling thirsty, grab a cup or maybe an extra one because you're not going to get it until mile 6 for this. So keep that in mind as you make your way through Brooklyn. And I do love running through Brooklyn because you see so much diversity, so much music, so much partying. It is a great atmosphere. You run through Sunset Park, Bay Ridge. I used to live in Bay Ridge, and it was such a great place to cheer from because it's the first time they really got crowds from the start. And so it's a really cool place to be if you have family out there at 4th Avenue. It's so fun to cheer there, but also hold in that energy you're getting because a lot of people do tend to hit that gas a little bit faster there. You still have a long way to go, Roberto.
Yeah, certainly, and as you can kind of see from the infographic at the bottom, I said the first 2 miles, take it easy, but once you land in Brooklyn, that's actually really where I would recommend the same, our pacers do it. That's when you can kind of start to lock into that pace because as you can see, you have, 6, 7, 8 miles of relatively even, relatively flat terrain. There's not much of a climb, a couple little bumps here and there, but nothing tremendous. So that way you can really lock in that whatever your goal pace is. But I would also say the marathon is unfortunately or fortunately super, super easy when you're fit until it isn't. So in these early miles, no matter how good you feel, no matter how easy it feels, hold back, be disciplined. If your goal is 4:15 and you have to run 9:43, run 9:43 even if it feels like you're wasting your time, like you're just like, this feels so easy because you never know at what point it'll feel hard. And the marathon will eventually feel hard for everybody. Ideally, it feels hard with 5K to go or 10K to go, not with 20K or half marathon to go. So definitely lock into the pace, harness that energy from Brooklynites that are going to be out there cheering you on, dancing, playing music, handing you stuff, but just make sure you hold back because it's still super early days and we're heading into the halfway point, mathematical halfway point.
Yeah, mile 13, guys, as Roberto said, the latter part of Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Clinton Hill, it is a block party, so enjoy that part, but watch your pace. Mile 13, guys, this is the mathematically halfway point, but as coaches, we look at this as not the halfway point. Think of halfway as you're running at mile 20. That's where you're going to say, all right, how am I feeling? Am I following? Here's one of our pacers from previous years. Am I staying with the pacer, and can I go ahead of them, which they actually prefer you to beat them. That's their goal, to get ahead of them. Or should I stay with them because I'm having a rough day? So this is not your halfway as far as how you're pacing out there. You're still at nice, comfortable pace here. You're having a conversation. So if we're burning out, running together, we're talking, we're having a good time. I'm not racing him or anything like that. I'm not out of breath yet. Because if you hit Pulaski Bridge and you're out of breath, pull it back. A lot of people ask us how to avoid the wall, and a lot of it's nutrition and then that pacing out there. So make sure you focus on those two. And pacing, you control those two. Pacing and nutrition, you can control those. So make sure you're using the aid stations out there. Make sure you're taking your nutrition and also watching your pace, Coach Roberto.
Yeah, and you're trying to really get to the halfway point feeling really good the way you were maybe at 6 miles in, because otherwise you don't want to be redlining because, again, unfortunately, New York is a tougher course on the second half, and the second half is where most people, the fatigue starts to catch up. So when you're getting here, be like ideally like this guy. He's happy, he's looking to his right. He's actually missing a wonderful view, but maybe he's looking at us right now. So how are you doing, sir? But what you want to do here is just really feel good. Take stock. Like, yeah, you are halfway done, so that's great. But the second half can be more challenging because you have accumulated fatigue. You're out there longer, and of course, there's more significant hills coming up. So make sure you get to the Pulaski Bridge, which actually welcomes you into the third borough of the day.
And
Queens.
Before we get to our third borough of the day, we do have some great shout-outs and questions I want to hear from you guys. Let's see what is going on in the marathon's minds right now. Let's see. We have Alex says, "See you Sunday." Alex, thanks for tuning in tonight. Maria says, "Hello, Roberto and Steve."
That's
hey, Maria.
us.
Yeah. Edgar, hello from East Harlem United.
We know Edgar.
Edgar,
yeah.
I hope you come to the expo because I want to say hi to you. You watch every chat.
That's
Thank you
Edgar
so much.
Bueno.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Makila from New Jersey. I love New Jerseyans. Thanks for joining. And Jay says, "Finally back, the best marathon."
Yeah, exclamation mark.
Love it. We have some questions. Roberto, I'll toss this first one to you. Shuri says, "Can you bring a suitcase to the expo? My son and I are coming in from Pennsylvania into Port Authority. If we get there a little early, will they let us in?" So guys, two-parter here,
Yeah, the suitcase part. Yeah, I mean
You can
it's
bring
it's with
suitcase,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, you could bring it. Just make sure that you don't bring it to Fort Wadsworth on Sunday, because it probably is too big to count as your check bag. But yeah, you could bring your suitcase to the
Yeah,
expo.
and the second part, can you get there early? We do advise everyone trying their best to get to the expo at their designated time. That's one of that part of density reduction. So once again, if everyone came at the wrong times, it's going to be very crowded. So we want people as fast as possible to get there at the reserved time. If you need to get a cup of coffee or walk around town a little bit or go to the park, sit down, I would recommend that, then getting there early. Once again, we just want to separate people as much as possible for safety reasons at this year's expo.
Yep.
Next, we have Boris says, can I bring a guest to the expo, Coach Roberto?
Yeah, you could bring +1, so you designate who that is, but it has to only be one person, and they're also under the same rules and regulations that you are as far as proof of vaccine and negative COVID test and all that. So, but yeah, just one.
Who's going to be best best
Tune
friend?
in to find out.
Kate asks, are there Pacers in the local competitive corral? If so, which one? Kate, great question, because I actually manage their local competitive and the Pacers. There are no Pacers in the local competitive corral. You guys are super duper fast, so congrats on qualifying for that corral, but there will not be any Pacers in the local competitive corral.
But good luck to you, Kate.
Yeah,
Sounds
Kate.
like you're looking to run pretty fast.
I love it, exciting. Can't see it. Can we see a finish line? Michaela, thanks for the shout out earlier. Question, where are the buses from the Meadowlands going to be after the race? From the Meadow, do you mean before picking up? Do we know any more about this? I'm not sure, actually. Buses. No buses going back to New Jersey. Yeah, so after the race, you need to get back to your home state, home county, home borough after the race. If you're going to New Jersey, you can hop on the C train down to Penn Station, and either if you're going to Penn, take that New Jersey Transit or the PATH train.
Speaking from experience over here.
Or take the PATH over to wherever you're going, but there is no transportation from the finish to wherever you started from.
Yeah.
Eileen asks, can running partners who are in different colored corrals still run together from the start, Coach Roberto?
The answer is yes. We actually cleared that up earlier today. Just make sure that you move to the corral corresponding to the higher bib number between you and your friend, you and your partner, you and your family member.
Awesome. Guys, amazing questions. Keep them coming, but I know the most important part is getting through the hardest part of this course. So we're going to jump back into the course strategy. Roberto, you left us off at the hardest part of the marathon for a lot of people. The cliffhanger here.
Apologies.
You go through Queens. You only have about a mile and a half in Queens, and you're going to come to the Queensboro Bridge, guys. And I think there's people either love the Queensboro Bridge or they don't like the Queensboro Bridge. And you love it or don't like it for the same reasons. It's quiet. It's dark. Sometimes it's chilly. And so you take those. Some people love the solitude of it, but some people miss the crowds of the first 16 miles of the race. But guys, no matter what, you have to run it. So know what's coming up. This is your Queensboro Bridge. So this is actually the high, above you. You're going to run in the below part of it. So you can't. It's below, so it's a little darker. It's a little chillier sometimes. All you hear is a pitter-patter of runners behind you. I find this part of the course very ominous sometimes, but I do like it because I can really check in how my body's feeling. There's not the emotion of a crowd cheering your name. You can really focus on, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. Do I need to slow down, to stay where I am? Is it pacer? Do I need to stay at the pacer? How's my nutrition doing? How's my form feeling? And you can see here, once again, no spectators, very dark. You usually just hear some people talking behind you. But enjoy this, because after you get over, once again, one of the biggest climbs of the course, Roberto, you come to the reason people sign up for the marathon every single year, First Avenue. So let's dive into that.
Yeah, and I will quickly say that I actually love and hate that bridge. Like, it's one of my favorite parts of the course for the number of reasons you named, but I also, it's such a challenging uphill. But again, our runners, our pacers, and you runners out there, run that climb on Queensboro on effort. Don't worry about pace, because as Coach C just said, coming out the backside of that, you could absolutely rock it. You could fly, because it's a steep downhill. It's an off-ramp for vehicles. There won't be any on Sunday, so no worries there. But as Coach Ben said yesterday, and I'm going to quote him, and maybe later on I'll get out a measure, but it's about 270-degree turn, and you come onto First Avenue. But as Coach C just said, there aren't any spectators at first on the bridge, and as you get closer, you start to hear the roar and the pounding, and it just starts to, like, it wakes you up from, maybe a trance.
Feel inside, right?
Yeah, you just go like, oh my God, here it comes, and you come on, and it's just like a wall of noise, a cheer tunnel, and you can't help but get pumped up. As I said earlier today, I think every year without fail, whoever I'm pacing, I tell them about this. and they absolutely just run away from me coming down onto First Avenue, and it takes about half a mile or so for me to catch them because they slow down and I keep the same pace. So, harness that energy. You're far enough away from the finish line, but you're also far away from the start line. So you're kind of in this like limbo zone where it's like I have maybe 10 miles to go, which is not that long, but I'm tired, and the start line is 60 miles away. So it's an interesting place. But coming onto First Avenue, you're greeted by fans again after what seems like an eternity without fans. As you can see there, there's aid stations on the left and the right. There's folks there in green. And the thing is, when you get into First Avenue, marshal your efforts, but at the same time, know that it's deceptively not, I don't want to say hilly, but it's a gradual climb all the way to First Avenue as we run up to the Bronx. You can kind of see it in this infograph where you see that it seems like the earth is bending in front. So you won't really feel the climb too much, but the thing is that as you get further and further into the race, every minuscule incline feels a lot more, a lot tougher than it really is. So make sure that when you get onto First Avenue, you harness that energy, but you kind of really check yourself because, as Coach Steve said, we want to treat the halfway point as more like mile 20. So that's the physiological halfway point, which that's what First Avenue is going to lead us into.
That's right, guys. And also keep in mind, we said nothing new on race day, but if you have used honey stinger gels, those will be on the course at mile 12 and also at mile 18. So grab one, grab two if you've used those. You'll see them on First Avenue. All different flavors. Caffeine and caffeine-free will be there as well. And I always say, if you're used to them, I take a big handful because you never know when you're going to need it again. If it take exact amount. You might need it at mile 21. You never did training, but today you need it, so grab more than you need to. First Avenue, it's going to take you into the Bronx, which I love coming to the Bronx. It's also a really hard part, guys. This is the part where our training usually has only taken us to about mile 20 on average for a lot of runners, especially first-time runners. So a lot of times we hit what's called the wall here. But if you've paced yourself properly and you've also done your nutrition really well, you're going to push that wall back even farther. So we're going to head into the Bronx here, guys. And the Bronx, while you're in there for only about 2 miles, they let you know you are there. It's exciting. A lot of teams set up cheer stations there. A lot of groups, a lot of clubs set up cheer stations in the Bronx because they want you to know they have your backs for this final 10K. And treat those final 10Ks like it's the last race you're going to run because, as we said, this is your halfway point as a runner. So treat it like if you're with a pacer. This is where I always tell myself, all right, how am I feeling? I'm going to do a check. Am I feel like I can push a little bit faster because this is my last gear? I'm kind of in my final push here, my last 10K, because at this point we can all run a 10K in our training. So push it a little bit harder if you can. If not, you're going to stay with that pacer. But adjust how you feel at this point and figure out, okay, I'm going to sprint or I'm going to run a little faster or I'm going to stay where I'm at mile 20. You want to take us back into Manhattan, Coach Roberto?
Yeah, and I'll just say quickly since we have it up, this is Willis Avenue Bridge, and we just ran it, myself and Coach Ben, who was here earlier, we ran it on Sunday and didn't think much of it as we typically don't when we're running the course beforehand, but when you get here, this is around mile 19 and change, it will feel a lot bigger than it is. So again, effort versus pace anytime you run the hills. But as Coach Steve just said, we've gone through mile 20. We said hello to the Bronx. We've listened to some awesome music because they're always showing up out there. And now we get back into Manhattan, which is our 5th borough, and we're in it for the last time. We're not going in and out like as we did earlier. So what happens here is there is Marcus Garvey Park, which a lot of people, yep, there it is, around mile 22, spot on. It's a great place, but a lot of people at this point, they're just running on hard. I won't quote Jackson Brown, said running on empty. I just did. But, they're just running. They're just thinking, get to the park. And they'll see the trees. They'll see kind of like the outcropping and think, okay, the park is closed. And to be honest, that's not the park. You kind of do a quick little dog leg around there, hit mile 22, and then you get right back onto 5th Avenue, and you start to get closer and closer to the top of Central Park, which Central Park, for those out-of-town runners, out-of-town guests, begins on the north end on 110th Street, and it runs all the way down to about 59th Street. So at 110th Street is when we start the park, and then on 5th Avenue, that's where we start about a mile-long drive, which I'll go on record, no worries saying that this is my least favorite part of the course. People I coach, people I'm pacing, I say, yeah, the 20 miles is the physiological halfway point, but honestly, if we could get through the 5th Avenue climb, then the rest of the race were probably golden no matter what, because that is the toughest part. It's the longest hill that we have other than the Verrazano Bridge, which obviously is mile 1, so it's a throwaway. So focus on effort, not pace, but again, also know that it's okay to feel tired. You know, we're giving you great advice, but we don't want you to ignore the human element. If you're tired, it's okay. Everybody around you is tired. At this point, you're probably passing a lot of people that you hadn't seen before because they had gone out too fast. So focus on effort. This is a tough hill, but know that you can make it. And once you make it onto that, you'll turn right onto East 90th, right into Central Park, and you get some, friendly downhills, which at that point is most welcome.
I love going around in Central Park. This is as you enter, once again, the park at 90th Street, as Coach Roberto said. Now, this is also where the television crews, I always say, and the elite athletes have entered the hills of Central Park. And here comes the brutal hills. And there are hills in Central Park. There's Harlem Hill, but you don't run it. There's the Three Sisters, but you don't run them. There's Cat Hill, but you run down Cat Hill. So it's a really fun part of the course. Your big hills, your big climbs are over. You have a lot of weaving, so try to run the tangents as much as possible. But enjoy Central Park, and you're also, once again, kind of at that final gear you have. You're going to run down Cat Hill. You're going to see a big statue of a cat on the right-hand side. It's really cool. You're going to exit Central Park one more time. This is actually Central Park South, and this is what you're going to see, guys. This is the runner's view heading towards Columbus Circle. And I like to use a invisible lasso or whatever I can do to pull myself to that finish line, lasso it onto that statue up there, and have it pull you in, because you're going to need every little energy you have. The crowd is very wide here, left and right side. You have people cheering for you as loud as they can, because you're only about a mile or less than a mile to the finish line from this part of the course, guys. And as you round that last corner of Central Park, you have about 400 meters left. You're going to see people cheering from you on both sides of the road. And as you come through the finish line, you can go on either side, left or right side here, but you're going to raise your hands and celebrate being a finisher of the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon, guys. And it's going to be a big, important day.
Yeah, I mean, it's the 50th running, and one thing you'll notice about our two champions here from 2019, obviously they're winning the race. I'll be honest, most of us probably aren't going to win the race, but what we can do is get an awesome finisher photo. So what they're not doing is crossing the line, looking at their watch, clicking it. Yeah, we all have our own GPS devices, maybe our social media, our Strava, what have you, and I'll let you know a little secret. We do have professional timing for this race,
Best in the world.
You actually will get an official time. So if your watch, you want to click it, sacrifice 5 seconds just for a great finisher photo. Maybe get that click afterwards, but raise your hands. Be more like these people that we see here.
Look at that.
Yeah, everybody's
celebrating. That is a photo finish you're gonna put online afterwards.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, I think the elites, much respect to them, and super keen to see how they get on. But this is really where the human story is unfolds. Just different stories, different people running, different people finishing, and this is how it'll look. And then things that you cross the finish line, and the race is over. But what we begin is what we call the 27th mile.
Mile 27, guys. That's right. The day is not over, but you're done running, guys. It is important to figure out what you're going to do after the race. So once you finish, you're going to be handed your medal. Look at it, celebrate it. You can take a picture with it. It's all fun.
Actually, it'll be in your HSS bag.
Your HSS bag. Yeah. So in that bag, you're also going to have Gatorade, water, bananas, pretzels, maybe honey stinger gel,
face mask,
like that, and a face mask, guys. So that face mask, if you don't have one, you can put that one on. It's a nice clean one. You're going to continue walking, and we want you to walk. Do not sit down. Keep on moving. Everyone is getting that post-race poncho, which is great. So keep that on after the race. It's going to keep you nice and warm. If you did check a bag a few days before, you'll be able to get that bag afterwards. Here's that recovery bag that you will be getting. And the other thing I want everyone to do is right now, after this chat, make a post-race finish plan, guys. There's 35,000 people running this race, like I said before. And imagine finishing with 35,000 people trying to figure out, where are you? I'm at this corner, and I'm at this street, or I'm in the cab. You need to figure out where you're going to meet now, so you're not looking all over the city, because cell phones sometimes don't work at the finish line. So make that plan now. It could be at a Dunkin' Donuts. It could be at a hotel lobby, a street corner, but make it specific. I'm going to be at 65th and Columbus Circle on the northwest side, or I'm going to be at this restaurant waiting for you with your favorite food after the race, whatever you can do. Make that plan now, so you're not scrambling the night before, Roberto.
Yeah, in addition with that, if you downloaded the app, which I just recommend it, but I implore you, download the app, because a lot of the advice we're giving is there, course map, pacer info, etc. You could input, or your loved ones could input your name or your bib number, and they could track you throughout the course. So they'll say, Steve has crossed the halfway point. He's predicted to finish at this time, and it'll keep updating as Steve runs in this example in real time. So you'll be able to have an idea of when Steve finishes, crosses the line, but then you'll also get another last update when Steve has actually exited the park. That way you'll know, okay, he finished in 3.5 hours, and now he's exited 15 minutes later. Now I know I can start to make my way to our predetermined meeting point because, as Steve said, cell phone reception is not always a given. There's cell phone saturation, and sometimes for a lot of people, if they use their their phone for music or sending text messages on the race, your battery could die. So just don't leave it up to chance.
Keep in mind, here's your finish line runners, and you're going to be doing this whole walk right here, and then you exit. This is all, the blue is all frozen zone, so they can exit here. This walk, while it looks short, after running 26 miles, it's going to take you a while. So have your family and friends, be patient. Subways, whatever you need, if you need to get east side of the city, you can go north, you can go south, but make those post-race plans, guys. And you'll be a finisher for the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon. I think, John, do we have any questions coming in from runners here? All right. Shout outs and questions. Let's see. We have Nami, first timer here, excited and nervous. Nerves are good, right?
Yeah.
We want nerves, actually.
Yeah, nerves just means that you care about the result. You're usually not nervous when you're training for a long run, but you are nervous, so that just means that you care about the outcome. So it's okay. Just make sure that those nerves don't overcome you. So you want to lean into the feelings that you have, but just turn that energy, nervous energy, into excited energy, as you said. And just think positively, because too many nerves or too much nervousness could obviously inhibit us and maybe make us run out too fast. So, but yeah, congrats.
Rich says, I guess from Brooklyn, first marathon. Rich, thanks for joining us. Yeah. All right, we got some questions from you guys. Let's see. Patrick asks, are there any particular windy parts of the course? I think it's a really good question, and we talked about it a little bit before, but before the race, you can have throwaway clothes. So it does get chilly on the start line, so a lot of people bring sweatshirts or armbands, gloves, hats, anything to stay warm. I try to hold on to some of those because the Verrazano Bridge can be windy, and sometimes even the Queensboro Bridge can be windy. Once again, there's just no protection from buildings over there. So sometimes I have kept gloves in a pocket. If you have arm warmers, you can slide them down, but then pull them back up for wind. First Avenue, once again, depending on the wind that day, can be coming towards you. Have you noticed any other wind tunnels?
The places where you mentioned that I've noticed the last several years consistently, definitely the Verrazano, but usually there's just so many people there, and it's early on that you don't really feel anything, whether it's a headwind or typically a crosswind. Queensboro, I've felt it a little bit just because we were in the middle, and it's just like kind of
wind
perfect.
Almost,
yeah. But one thing I will say is definitely watch out for those two bridges. But anywhere else you face wind, whether it's a headwind or a crosswind, just lean into it a little bit. But just as we said earlier with the hills, go on effort, because if you're trying to run that 4:15 or 9:43 per mile pace into the wind, you might be holding it, but once again, just like running uphill, you're actually going to be working harder. So just sacrifice a little bit of time when you're running into the wind and take it easy.
All right. Next question we got coming from, it's the important one. Aubrey says, how will we know where the course diverges in Brooklyn? Green versus blue, etc. John, we can pop on the course map here. It's a really good question. So depending on what wave you are, once again, everyone's running 26.2 miles. We have green on the lower part of the Verrazano Bridge, blue and orange on the top, and you can see green is going to be on the right side of 4th Avenue. There is a divider in between 4th Avenue, and orange and blue are on the left side of 4th Avenue. So if your family and friends cheering for you, that's the side they need to be on. If they're on the wrong side, you can have them just go to a subway station along the street there, 4th Avenue, and the subways actually go underground there. So you just come up the other side to cheer for you there.
Subway goes underground. I like that. That's
subway,
yeah.
But it passes through the course.
Yeah.
So
and one thing we didn't mention earlier, Mile 8 around the Brooklyn Academy of Music, or BAM, that's actually where all three courses come together. So if you're out there spectating for your loved ones, after Mile 8 and beyond, that's where it doesn't matter where you are on the course, everybody will be coming through on the same streets the rest of the way.
All right, next question we have from Anna. If I didn't register for a pre-race bag check, can I change that at the expo? Fortunately, this year, the pre-check bags are sold out. We can only have a certain amount of bags there. It's a small space this year, so fortunately that's sold out. So just plan ahead, control what you can control, pack something nice and warm for the start. And like I said, everyone at the finish line is going to that post-race poncho. And if you have friends and family who are going to be meeting you at the end, they can bring you something, sweatshirt, sweatpants, whatever you need at the finish line. Aubrey again, maybe the same one person. Is it possible to change our transit selection now at the expo, Roberto?
I believe no.
You can ask them. Fairy changes, yeah, you can do small ones like fairy changes. Ask them at the expo. Go to the expo and talk to runner services when you get in. Some people miss it. You get your bibs on the left side of the expo, but once you get your bib, just go to the right side of the expo as you walk in. You'll see runner services. Those are the great staffers that will help you make any changes to your, corrals or for your transit or your, name. They can help you with all that. Sam, can we watch this talk later?
Yes. Yes.
It's really funny.
That's not our Sam.
There's a guy Sam behind the screen right now tossing questions.
Yeah, these are recorded live, but then they are archived on the Facebook page, so you can watch them later. And again, this is the last one we're doing today, but we'll be on tomorrow, a combination of myself, Steve, and our other colleague, Ben, at 9 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. So
Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, Eastern Standard Time. Ooh,
Almost got it again.
Not having another one of those.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, you could also rewind this and watch it later.
All right, we got another question here from Jose. Can I bring my own belt with my drinking bottles? Yes, you can have waist belts with water in them. I think there's a certain size they need to be. Check that. We have it on our website. Go to prohibited items. It'll tell you what's not allowed. And I think it also says what you can bring. So waist belts are allowed. Carrying your water bottle is okay. We do have water every mile, like I said, on the course between 3 and 25, minus 5, 7, and 9. But also, if you've been training in a hydration belt, you just trust it. You know when you need water. Definitely, you can bring that as well. The one thing that a lot of runners ask is the backpack kind of camelback kind of things. Those are not allowed.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. But great question. Coming next, we have Janice. What safety precautions are being taken to ensure fluid stations are safe, especially preparing and grabbing cups of water and Gatorade, Roberto?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, essentially, we've lessened the number of runners on the course, and as Coach Steve said earlier, and a couple of times, we are skipping 8 stations in miles 5, 7, and 9. So trying to limit congestion, but then also what we actually do every year is we put the hydration, Gatorade first, water second, almost along an entire city block. So that also ideally limits congestion, and in this year, more importantly, congregation. So, when you're running there, feel free to continue running. Don't have to stop at the very start of that table because it continues to go on. And then aside from that, everything's going to be poured out or poured into the cups at the last minute, so it won't be sitting out there too long. But obviously, if I'm running at 3 hours or 3.5 hours and Steve is running at 4 hours or 4.5 hours or even later, then they're going to have to continue to replenish that, and that's what will be done. But every sanitation precaution is going to be taken and to limit touch points.
Yeah. Next question we have.
Sorry, and one more thing. There will be a couple places that runners can also refill their bottles at aid station, which is something that we typically don't do. Obviously, some runners might not want to do that because they're going to lose some time, but that's an opportunity for those runners who really don't want to. They want to carry on their own hydration, and they really don't want to use the Gatorade or water that's provided. They could just stop at the hydration station, refill their bottle, and so that's something new this year as well.
Awesome. Great. Jose earlier. Yeah. Amanda says, how much time is there between each corral in a wave? Or do they all funnel together at the start? A really good question. We actually had this at the expo earlier.
I think Alen was showing us.
So it's going to go, the cannon's going to go off, A is going to go off, B is going to go off. It's just a wave of people. They do lower the dividers in between the corrals a few minutes before the start. So all runners kind of go, it's like a stoplight. So all runners do go at first. Once the person ahead of you goes, you can go. So it's not like a wave. It's not a... what am I thinking of? It's not like a time start. Everyone just goes once that cannon starts.
Yeah, and the good thing too is that Steve and I may be in the exact same wave. Let's say wave 1, but he might be at the very front of it. I might be at the back of it. So we will start quote unquote at the same time as far as it dropping at 9:10. But Steve and I will still have our time count when he crosses the line for him and when I cross the start line. So it's not necessarily like my time is going to reflect Steve's where I'm 30 seconds behind. And then there'll be obviously a gap between one wave and the next wave starting.
Next question we have. Eileen asks, can running partners who are in different colors still run together from the start? Really good question. Yes, runners can be together. Just go to the ladder bib number, and that means you can also change color, waves, corrals, you name it, as long as if I'm, blue wave 1 and I want to run with him and he's 4 orange, I can go back with Roberto and run with him and his friends back there. As long as everyone is at the ladder, the farther back bib, you're allowed to do that. And same with pacers. If you want to run with a pacer on race day, but they're behind you, you can move back to that corral to run with that pacer, but you cannot move forward. Next, we have a question from Bella. where and when can you discard excessive clothing, blankets at the start? We were talking about our partners at Goodwill. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so for the last forever years, we partnered with Goodwill, and it's great because you'll if you don't know, you'll actually see runners around you. They just start shedding off their clothing and kind of throwing it over the divide, and some of them get it into the bins. But if not, we have wonderful volunteers that actually gather up the clothing, especially after everybody has started, and they put it in Goodwill bins. So a lot of clothing is donated each year. I know sometimes I see clothing where I'm like, I should grab that. 'Cause
There's
it's
some
really
good
nice.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's nicer than what I'm running in. But yeah, so and when? Well, literally at the start, either right when you start or at the start before you've actually commenced the race. Again, that's up to personal preference because some people are chilly. You're kind of standing there in nervous energy. But some people are just like, I'm gonna get cold, but I know once I start running, I'll warm up. So a lot of people, I would say, I see a lot of clothing between the start, mile 0 to the end of the Verrazano Bridge, mile 2, and usually by Brooklyn, most people are just gonna run in what they're gonna run in and stay that way till again maybe the latter miles. But as far as the early days, it's definitely on the bridge. We have the Goodwill collection bins.
Just keep in mind, guys, if you're gonna wear layers, whatever shirt you want to finish in, that's where your bib goes. So if I'm gonna toss this jacket and finish in this hoodie, my bib is gonna be pinned to the hoodie, and I'm gonna toss this. You don't want to sit there and try to unpin. I know it seems common sense, but you sometimes panic, and so make sure that bib is on the. Usually it's the closest one to body, depending on how you're gonna finish.
Yeah.
All right, next question we have from Chris. Chris asks, do you have to have a negative COVID test in addition to the COVID vaccination card at the expo? So to get into the expo, you need to be vaccinated, and you show that as you enter the expo. You need your card or a government-provided app to get into the expo, or a negative COVID test, and you pick those up on Saturday outside the expo.
Yeah, and that negative COVID test needs to be within 48 hours,
48 hours,
ideally.
yeah.
So.
Good question, though, Chris. We also have Fran. Can I roll my GoPro during the race?
Yeah, so as somebody who's actually run with a GoPro several years, you can't have a selfie stick or any protruding objects. So if you run with a GoPro, obviously for those who don't know the action camera, it is quite small. Just wherever you wear it, as long as it doesn't interfere with other runners around you. So if you have it on a stick, make sure it's a very short stick and you're not out extending it. We usually don't encourage people to do that because it could become a safety hazard. So just really be aware of your surroundings. The same thing we always say, we tell people don't run with music on, but of course some people need to. But then again, if I'm running behind Steven, he's just rocking out to jock jams from the 80s or 90s, well then he might not hear me when I say on your left or on your right. So again, you take those precautions yourself. But yeah, in short, if you're gonna run with a GoPro, make sure that it's handheld and it's not out with a 3-foot, 4-foot, 5-foot selfie stick.
How do you know I like jock jams? Thanks.
Who doesn't? We're the same generation.
All right. Sherry asked, I'm in wave 5 blue B, and my son is in wave 5 green B. Can we both drop back to 5 blue C? Yes. Right?
Seems like multiple choice.
Back. Yeah, it's moving back here. Yes. Always drop back to the higher, to the ladder, corral, and bib number.
Yeah. We don't encourage breaking up families.
Yeah, run together. It's always a good memory. Yeah. Next question. Dee Dee asks, I heard that in the past there was a spectator planning in the app. Is that available this year? There is not available. One more time. I'm getting intel from behind the scenes here. So there's not a spectator planning app, but there's a really good map in the app that you can definitely look at into where to cheer. I mean, it's got tons of subways that you can look into, all the stuff in the app, but you can cheer anywhere along the course minus the bridges basically. So Verrazano Bridge, Pulaski Bridge, the bridges in Bronx, the only place you can't cheer, but besides that, anywhere along the course. And it really depends also how well versed you are in the New York City subway system. I had my girlfriend at the time, now wife, cheer 4 times along the course because she got lucky by trains. But some people do once or twice along the course. One place you also hard to cheer from is the actual finish line, which you need a ticket to the grandstand tickets to get to the finish line cheer.
Yep.
Next we have Megan ask, is it pretty easy to get dropped off by an Uber at Fort Wadsworth for those staying in Staten Island, Roberto?
Again, it depends on where you're coming from. Obviously, it might have to drop you off a little bit further instead of literally at the doorstep because there's a lot of security and protocols in place, but it is relatively easy for those Staten Islanders. I assume that's what they're called, Staten Islanders. Yeah, if you're going to take an Uber, they'll know the road closures, and obviously when you put in the GPS, it will show you which roads are closed and restricted. So just plan ahead, make sure that you are prepared to maybe walk an extra several blocks, but and also plan enough time beforehand instead of trying to get there at the last minute, because that goes to avoiding the race before the race.
Keep in mind, there are going to be a lot of Ubers being asked that day and Lyft, so ask early, get there, because there are going to be a lot of people going to do the same thing. And on our site, if you go to, I think the start line, it tells you where those drop-off locations is for personal cars. So keep that in mind if you need to do that. Next question we have from Leanne. How do you find pacers at the start? Really good question, Leanne. So our pacers, once again, they'll be blue and white singlets with these signs as well. In the start crowds, there'll actually be a huge sign that's bigger than I could put on TV here. It's a really big sign. So you'll see them at the start village, but if you want to know what crowds exactly, if you haven't been to the expo, we actually have our pacers at a booth there. It's basically near the exits. You'll see them for sure. They'll talk to you, get you comfortable. We have our list of where they'll be in the start villages. If you have been to the expo and you missed it, or you want to see it again, it's on our website. Just go to the marathon site. There's a tab for Start tab, and then it's in the pace team category there. They're in almost all corrals, not every single one, and sometimes there's multiple pacers in a corral. So look at that list, and once again, you can always move back to a pacer, but you can't move forward to a pacer. Good question, though. Next question coming in from Perm. How is the GPS signal in the city? Does it bounce around in some areas or works well in general? Roberto, I'll toss this to you. And how's your GPS been the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, this is not a plug for the Apple Watch that I have, because I have mine. It's like 3 years old now, but like I've used it year in and year out, and I have never run. I've run 26.2. I've never had it say 26.2, but it's been generally pretty accurate. I think everybody running, you see later on Strava, like everybody has different. So in short, it does bounce around here and there. So it's up to you to kind of do that adjusted calibration and maybe use different mile markers. But you also, if you're running consistently, so for me, I think in 2019, we're running 640 or so per mile. And I just know that each mile was 640. It was just like the overall average was, the overall pace or distance was like a little bit longer than we were running. But there are some places where it's going to bounce around a little bit more than others. There are some places where it's going to be open. So, the good thing is starting right off the bat on the Verrazano Bridge, is no really GPS interference, and then getting into Brooklyn on 4th Avenue, it gets pretty solid there as well. But later on, once you start to get closer to Manhattan, Queensboro Bridge, things like that, it might skip. But again, there's so many different GPS devices now. There's different brands out there, different strengths. So just be prepared to not have it read exactly, because I can't remember the last time I saw a marathon or finished a marathon. Like, I had 26.2. If it was a major city marathon, I'm sure if you're running the Nebraska Open Country Marathon, then sure, but yeah.
Good question, though. Next one we have coming from Pedro. How much slower is NYC compared to Chicago? If I went a 340 in the heat in Chicago this year, what is a realistic goal? I think you have a very part question here, and I think a lot of factors at play. So Chicago being, I think, was it 4 weeks ago? Actually, 4 weekends ago.
October 8th or so.
It's hard to race both of those, just because you're coming into a place where if you race that, you're just now recovered, so you didn't get any more chance of training actually since then. So that was your last hard effort 4 weeks ago. You're just now recovered. It takes about 30 days to recover from a marathon. So you can go out and race it. It's not so much. Look at the course records of both of them. It's not too big difference from the elite side. From on non-elite side, I think it's a little bit bigger. In Chicago, you had that horrible heat that year. New York has 3 big hills compared to Chicago that has almost no hill at all, minus that last lip at the finish, but probably didn't affect your time there. So if you were the same trained person that didn't have the race to affect yourself in the heat, you could get a similar time, I think, if you pace yourself properly and have proper nutrition in New York. Just know you're coming into it with a marathon 4 weeks ago, and you do have, once again, an elevation change in this one, and the weather's going to be different. So keep that in mind. And maybe this one is just a celebration for you. You're going to go to, you had a great Chicago race, and this one's just going to be a fun race for you that you can just maybe turn the watch off or put it in your pocket or something like that, and enjoy the sights and sounds of New York City. Yeah,
I would say Chicago is generally a faster course. Yeah, it's flatter. I was able to run both Chicago and New York in 2019, and completely different courses. So I'd say follow Steve's advice, but also just adjust your expectations. So if you ran Chicago in 340 with that heat, I would say you probably could run similar time in New York as this year. We're looking at getting really favorable weather
Ideal
for
conditions.
running, and that's mid 40s to low 50s, which is not ideal for maybe spectators standing out there cheering, but for those of us running, it's super ideal. So had Chicago had that, you probably would have run faster on the day.
Good question, though. Good luck out there.
Yeah.
Dee Dee says, can you please share some nutrition tips? Really good question. So we're not, registered dietitian or anything like that. We just have some running common knowledge. So, everything's individualized for this. So, nutrition, it also comes down to what your training is. So what Roberto did for nutrition, his nutrition for, his last marathon and mine are completely different probably. We ate different things. We drank different things on that race day. So the best way is look at your past long runs. Hopefully you maybe wrote stuff down and you have a good memory. You know what you ate the night before, maybe 2 nights before. You know when you had water, when you had sports drinks like Gatorade, you had your gels or your bars or your goos on your long runs. And if it worked well, you're going to mirror that. And so maybe you took a gel every 30 minutes, and that's what you're going to do on race day. You're not going to change it because I told you I took mine every 45 minutes. So nothing new on race day. Look at what you did in your long runs, in your past training, and what was successful for that. You also, generally though, most people will start having more carbs in their meals about now through race day. So, that doesn't mean you're eating a ton more, but just, having more carbs at breakfast than, a protein maybe. You're having more carbs at dinner, but you're still having a serving size, not a huge bowl of pasta, just one serving size. Just throughout the day a little bit more, and race morning as well, just a little bit more of the morning. But you're still replicating your breakfast that you had on those long run mornings, Roberto.
Yeah, the thing, 2 things I'll add to that. Just really, when it comes to nutrition, hydration, especially the week of the marathon and even marathon, it should be pretty boring in the sense of like this is not the time to try different restaurants, especially coming to New York or try exotic foods. Like keep it boring. Yeah. What's worked, what's gotten you here, and then one thing that I like to tell people that Steve briefly touched upon. If you haven't done it before in training or in previous races, definitely do it now. Go by minutes versus miles when it comes to hydration, nutrition during the race, because whether you're in control of it, have it in your hand, or you're going by aid stations, if you go by miles, then the miles might start to feel further apart as you get tired and you're out there longer waiting for, okay, it hasn't been 5K yet, so I shouldn't take it. Whereas if you go by minutes, that's always going to be consistent, whether you're running super, super fast or literally walking. 30 minutes is 30 minutes, or 40 minutes or 35 minutes. So, I think that's a good consensus on nutrition.
Good question, though. Good luck out there.
Yeah.
We have from my ear, we have a lot of questions coming in. So let's see what we have next. From my ear, we have Glenn says, are the waves scattered with more time in between this year? I don't know if it's more time or less time. I know we have more waves, and it's same time in between them. So 30 minutes between wave 2 and 3, same as last year. It's just more waves and more time at the start and the finish. So same time between them, though.
Yeah.
Next question we have from Anna. How early would you suggest getting to Staten Island, Roberto?
I would say, and this might sound ridiculous, but I would say plan on at least 90 minutes. And I say at least, so you'll see when you pick up your bib today or in the next few days, you'll see your corresponding waves, corral, et cetera, start time. So then you can kind of extrapolate from that when you should plan to be there. But at least 90 minutes, because again, avoid the race before the race. Got to get through security, obviously COVID protocols, and the worst thing that could happen is you get there with time to spare. You could just kind of sit out and chill out versus getting there at the opposite end with very little time to go. You're stressed getting through security, et cetera, and then boom, your race is coming up.
Yeah, good question though. Good luck out there. Next question we have, Gregory, what time does the Verrazano Bridge close? So I think for traffic for cars, I think it's about 6:30 in the morning-ish. 6:30 is when the vehicles are not allowed across the Verrazano Bridge. So hopefully, you're taking NYRR public transportation or buses. We'll get you there no matter what. Those buses also do get priority to get over the bridge. So I'd highly recommend that than maybe your own public car to get the start line.
Yeah, good question, because I actually read it as like close, like at the end of the day.
For runners, I'm not sure, but it's definitely for hopefully for cars. John asks, what is the best way to try to get into the NYC Marathon for someone who lives out of state? Roberto.
I'm not sure. Like, what are they asking?
I think maybe to run next year. How do you?
Oh, to run for the next year.
For next year, I'm assuming. Yeah. How do you
well, there's a lottery. Obviously a lottery. You take the chances there, but there's a lottery. There's 9+1. Again, if you're living out of state, literally like Connecticut, New Jersey, in the tri-state area, you could come in and do 9+1. So that's 9 races plus 1 volunteering. I already mentioned charities. We have our in-house charity team for kids, but then on our webpage we have a list of other charities. So that's another way to get guaranteed entry. And then
time qualifier as
yeah,
well.
there's time qualifiers. You know, some of our local competitive elites do go that way as well. Have I missed anything
virtual
else?
Marathon.
Well, virtual marathon if they haven't done it because they're looking for next year. But yeah, virtual marathon this year. If you have registered for it, it opened up last week and closes on the 7th, which is this Sunday. So that's another way. I think I've covered them all.
ITOs as well if you're out of country.
Well, this out of state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So it's a tricky question, but yeah, if you're
a lot of options. Yeah.
Yeah, ITOs is typically for our international tour operators, so people overseas. But out of state, again, if you're within the tri-state area, you could do the 9+1. If you're further than that, lottery, charity, virtual marathon.
Yeah. A lot of options for you guys. Good question, though. Good luck next year. Hope we can see you at the finish line next year. Next question coming from Bobby. I signed up for bag drop. I'm not going to use it. Since others want to use bag drop, is there anything I can do to give it up for someone else to use? You know, a lot of people this race, go to the runner service booth when you get your bib, talk to them. They can hopefully help you out as far as moving that from your bib. Next question we have coming in from Billy. Does Google Maps show the New York City Marathon route or finish line?
No.
I don't think so. I mean, sometimes in New York City they'll show like street fairs on Google Maps. I don't think it'll show the marathon this year. There are sites that have the map. You know, just know that day. You know, I'll use the course official map on a website to find out the course and what streets are. Or the app also has it as well.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Google Maps will do on the day is if you were hypothetically trying to drive somewhere and go through the course, it would actually show, you know, road closures and a high traffic. Yeah, you know, things like that. But it actually won't show you the course map.
Yeah. Good question. Next up, we got Becca. Can your bib be under your layer, or does it need to be on the top at all times? Really good question, Becca. I'm assuming you mean more at the start of the race. So coming to layering, so whatever shirt you're going to finish in the race is where you want your bib. So if I'm going to finish in this maroon hoodie and this is my throwaway shirt, I'm going to put my bib on that one and then take this sweater off after I pass the start line or something like that. But it will still be checked at the start line. It'll be clocked no matter what. It'll be good. Next question we have, Aaron, can you repeat what to do if you want to run with a partner in a different colored corral, Alberto?
Yeah, you could move back to that corresponding corral that with your partner. And if it's a corral that it's ahead of you, you could only go up with a corresponding, the higher of the two numbered bibs.
Yes, you move back colors, waves, charts, names, whatever it is, just got to move backwards only. Next question, we got Megan. Is there any etiquette if you need to stop and walk or stretch during the race? Should I go to pick a side? I love this question, being very curious and looking ahead of time. Definitely move to the side, but you know, I always like to kind of give a glance behind me and make sure there's not a group of people behind me. And go to hand signal, just like I'm going to stop, just a runner, you know, it depends on what mile they're at. Mile 23, you're dazed, so maybe just also yelling, I'm stopping, pulling over the side and looking behind you, make sure no one is there. It's really good etiquette, just so it's safety out there is number one. So not stopping in front of someone is a good idea. Good question though, and I like reminds that. Kate says, do all the corrals start at the same time in each wave, or are they staggered throughout the wave? I think we had this one earlier.
Yeah. I just like reading the question. So again, like for the first, wave one is 9:10, so it'll start and it'll just gradually go behind that. So the race does start then, but not everybody's going to cross the line immediately. I think when we were doing the course strategy earlier, we showed you one of the first photos. It just showed a thick line of people. So that would have corresponded to one corral and the first wave, let's say. So they would have started at the same time, but it just gradually moves up.
It's like a stoplight for cars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, coming in next. A lot of questions. I love these questions. You guys asking good ones. Pedro, will they serve us Michelob Ultra beer at the A station? Hope so. No, Pedro, they will not, unfortunately. So have your friends meet you at a place at the finish line, and they can have it waiting for you with your name on it, Pedro, when you bring that medal to them. Good question, though. Coleman, is there a typical mile on the course people find themselves hitting the wall? Roberto, you ran it many times with many different people. What is your
everybody's different. Obviously, if you pace yourself poorly, it could come,
13,
earlier than that. But the thing is that the marathon is super easy until it's not, and ideally, it gets harder with 5K to go or 10K to go. But I would generally say, and I don't want to say this, emphasize it too much because otherwise, you kind of create a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I would say usually between mile 18 and 22 is when people really start to feel the weight of the marathon, even if they pace it really well. And that's because for most people, that is the range of how far they've gone in their longest long run. So beyond that, it's a little bit of unknown territory. But usually 18 to 22, 23, and then anything beyond that, you could really kind of just start to sniff the finish line, and 5K to go, 3 miles or so to go. But that's usually where we hear a lot of people hitting it. But you're not going to hit it then. You're not. I'm going to repeat that. You're not going to hit it then.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, use our pacers to help slow you down from going out too fast. They're going to help your race be successful from the start. So you're going to stay with that 4-hour pacer. They might feel like they're going kind of slow. Marathon pace is actually super easy. It's just hard for 26.2. We can all do marathon pace any day of the week. Just doing that for staying is the hardest part. So
Sunday's a good day to do it.
Sunday's a good day to do it. Good luck out there. Next question. To run. Can you clarify? If you're vaccinated, my understanding is that you don't need to get tested for the expo or race. Is that correct? Going to the expo, you just need to show your vaccination cards, or the card that you got, or the app to get in the expo. You're going to get one of these cool little bracelets. So you're right. You don't need to get negative tested if you're fully vaccinated. Just show, or if you're vaccinated with one of the 5 approved ones on our site, one shot, and those will get you in the expo, and you get a cool little bracelet to show off. Pedro, should we expect a negative split or positive split? Roberto, why don't you talk about both of those and how they affect this course?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say let's expect the best, a negative split. A negative split means that you run the first half slower than the second. That means that you're running the second half faster, speeding up. That's ideal. New York is obviously a tougher course. It's tougher to do that, but if you pace yourself really well, run conservatively for 13, 20 miles, is better. You have a better chance to do that. A positive split, you could still do a positive split and run a personal best, but a positive split, the tough part there, that means that you've run the first half at, let's say, 2 hours for a 4-hour goal marathon, and then you run the second half in 2:05 or slower. So that just means that you're running the second half slower. And again, the second half being harder, if you go out really, really fast, you're going to try to bang time. And one of our prior colleagues used to say bank equals bonk. So if you could try to run either even splits or aim for negative split, and by all means, try to avoid a positive split. But if it happens, it happens. Just stay positive and slow down, run within yourself, especially if it starts to happen earlier in the race. Good
question. We have a last one for tonight, Roberto. Last one of the day. Let's see. We got a question from Sherry. Do you have a favorite landmark on the course? I love this question.
You can take this first. I'll go.
Now, I love going into Central Park, going into 90th Street. You feel the crowd because you're in Central Park. That is. You smell the finish. It's on the other side of the park, but you're there. You're entering 90th Street. You just got to get to the west side of the park. So you're, mile 23, I think it is. It's so close. I love that part of the course because you're also over the last hills. You got some downhills. The crowd knows you there. Your also body just knows you can do it because you're over that hill. So that confidence has now risen again after the 5th Avenue hill. So I love going into the park there. Just that last turn in the park is really helpful for me for the last 5K. What about you, Roberto? Any great landmarks?
The finish line. Yeah, for so many reasons. It's a culmination of a lot of stories. 50,000+ in previous years, 30,000+ this year. There's just so much human theater, human emotion. For me, when I run it, it's also a relief that I'm done. I've either helped my runner accomplish a goal and we can celebrate. But it's just such a great place to just end. Like Central Park is there, people are cheering, and yeah, it's just so the finish line. It's I would say my favorite landmark, but it's really tough to pick because New York has so many. There's Brooklyn with a crowd. There's the Verrazano just starting there, just so high above the water.
Yeah, like at the start of it, it's a cannon. It's great.
So short answer, finish line. Long-winded answer, the whole course. 26.2 mile block party, and this year the city is really going to come out and celebrate after a 2-year hiatus.
I love it. Thank you, runners, so much for your questions. If you missed this chat, you can rewatch it on our Facebook or any of the ones today. Tomorrow, if you want to join us again, we are here at 9 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Times to go through the course mile by mile, borough by borough, and we have a great night, and we cannot wait to see you at the finish of the 2021 TCS New York City Marathon. Thanks, guys.
Good luck.